Hey guys. Welcome back to my channel HZR Services. Today we discuss proofreading in the video, which helps you make money online. Before we start, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Most people do not have a job and want to support their family. And they want to make money online. People are looking to have an additional income source with an increase in the price of commodities, goods or services, and the unemployment rate. Most students try to make money online in their free time. And sometimes, they become the victim of scammers. If you are a student and would like to be familiar with how to make money online, you came to the right platform, channel. If you are an employee or student, then your boss or professor may have told you in the past that you need to proofread your work before submitting it, although you didn't admit it at the time. It's possible that you asked yourself the following questions. What is proofreading? Why is proofreading important? What is involved in the proofreading process? What kinds of errors are identified and fixed during proofreading? Why should I even bother? When do I proofread? You might know that proofreading does not involve in-depth changes or fact-checking, and that proofreading is not the same as editing. It seems that, when we're talking about proofreading, the matter of what proofreading is not come up a lot more than what proofreading is. While that information is helpful, it still doesn't answer your original question. What is proofreading? Here's the simplest definition, which the rest of this article will explain in greater detail. Proofreading is the process of reviewing the final draft of a piece of writing to ensure consistency and accuracy in grammar, spelling, punctuation, and formatting. Proofreading includes reviewing for grammar, correct use of language, and format. It's the final touches needed to ensure a business document is accurate, consistent, and professional. Proofreading means carefully checking for errors in a text before it is published or shared. It is the last stage of the writing process when you fix minor spelling and punctuation mistakes, typos, formatting issues, and inconsistencies. Why is proofreading important? Proofreading can help you improve the readability and quality of your documents. It is important to ensure that your writing is error-free and professional. Proofreading is essential for any text that will be shared with an audience. Whether it's an academic paper, a job application, an online article, or a printable flyer, depending on your skills and budget, you can choose to proofread the text yourself or hire a professional. When do I proofread? Proofreading is often confounded with editing. Editing involves revisions of the document, often with significant changes, to ensure alignment with goals, the accuracy of the information, or tone modification. Only once those major edits are complete can the document move to the proofreading stage. Proofreading ensures the final content is free of linguistic and formatting errors. What is traditional proofreading? One of the things clouding people's understanding of what proofreading entails is that the word is used differently in different fields. Asking what is proofreading, to someone in the publishing profession, for example, will likely garner a very different reply than asking someone at a university. Someone in the publishing industry would view proofreading as the last possible opportunity to revise a manuscript before it is printed and published. The proofreader compares the proof's printed versions of the document, including all the formatting, page numbers, headers that will be included in the final edition with the edited copy, will make sure that the arrangement or printing has introduced no errors. But wait, I thought proofreading was about fixing spelling mistakes. Proofreading has taken on a definition separate from the role it plays in the publication of manuscripts. What most people are referring to when they use the word proofreading is the process of checking a document for any kind of grammatical, typographical, or formatting errors. Proofreading should always be the last step taken before a paper is published online, handed to a professor, submitted for a job application, or otherwise shared with its intended audience. What kinds of errors are identified and fixed during proofreading? By the time a document is ready to be proofread, it should have been edited already. This means its content should already be well organized, well written, and easy to understand. Editing also involves removing errors, but it focuses more on making sure the document makes sense as a whole. On the other hand, proofreading is about finding errors both small and large that were either missed or introduced during editing. Proofreaders ensure that the document's final draft is entirely free of grammatical errors, e.g., subject-verb agreement problems, incorrect word choices, improper punctuation usage, and inaccurate spelling, as well as formatting and typographical errors. They also make sure the document adheres to the chosen style guide. Unlike traditional proofreaders in the publishing industry, document proofreaders are not limited in the number of revisions they can make to a document. There is generally no high proofreading cost associated with making more changes. However, if proofreaders find that most of the paper still requires extensive modifications, they may recommend that it undergo another round of editing. Editing. Editing is what you begin doing as soon as you finish your first draft. You reread your draft to see, for example, whether the paper is well organized, the transitions between paragraphs are smooth, and your evidence backs up your argument. You can edit on several levels. Proofreading. Proofreading is the final stage of the editing process, focusing on surface errors such as misspellings and grammar and punctuation mistakes. You should proofread only after you have finished all of your other editing revisions. Proofreading example. Proofreaders usually check a printed proof copy of the text and mark corrections using specialized proofreading marks in the publishing industry. In other fields, though, professional proofreaders often work with digital textbooks and make corrections directly using the Track Changes feature in Microsoft Word or Google Docs. Proofreading versus editing. Editing and proofreading are different steps in the process of revising a text. Editing can involve significant content, structure, and language changes. But proofreading focuses only on minor errors and inconsistencies. Often a text will go through several stages of editing before it is proofread. The table below shows some typical steps in the editing process. The 4 stages of editing and proofreading. Type of editing. What it involves. Step 1. Content editing. Revising an early draft of a text. Often making significant changes to the content and moving, adding, or deleting entire sections. Also known as developmental or substantive editing. Step 2. Line editing. Revising the use of language to communicate your story, ideas, or arguments as effectively as possible. This might involve changing words, phrases, and sentences and restructuring paragraphs to improve the text's flow. Step 3. Copy editing. Polishing individual sentences to ensure correct grammar, clear syntax, and stylistic consistency. Often following the rules of a specific style guide, such as APA or MLA. Copy editors don't change a text's content. But if a sentence or paragraph is ambiguous or awkward, they can work with the author to improve it. Step 4. Proofreading. Carefully checking for any remaining errors. such as misspelled words, misplaced punctuation, and stylistic inconsistencies. In print publishing, proofreaders are also responsible for checking the formatting, e.g., page numbers and line spacing. Content. Have you done everything the assignment requires? Are the claims you make accurate? If it is necessary to do so, does your paper make an argument? Is the statement complete? Are all of your claims consistent? Have you supported each point with adequate evidence? Is all of your paper's information relevant to the assignment and/or your overall writing goal? For additional tips, see our handouts on understanding terms and developing an argument. Overall structure. Does your paper have an appropriate introduction and conclusion? Is your thesis clearly stated in your introduction? Is it clear how each paragraph in the body of your essay is related to your thesis? Are the sections arranged in a logical sequence? Have you made clear transitions between paragraphs? One way to check your paper's structure is to create a reverse outline of the paper after you have written the first draft. Structure within paragraphs. Does each paragraph have a clear topic sentence? Does each section stick to one main idea? Are there any extraneous or missing sentences in any of your paragraphs? Clarity. Have you defined any important terms that might be unclear to your reader? Is the meaning of each sentence clear? One way to answer this question is to read your paper one sentence at a time, starting at the end and working backwards so that you will not unconsciously fill in content from previous sentences. Is it clear what each pronoun, he, she, it, they, who, this dot, refers to? Have you chosen the correct words to express your ideas? Avoid using words you find in the thesaurus that aren't part of your regular vocabulary. You may misuse them. Style. Have you used an appropriate tone, formal, informal, persuasive? Is your use of gendered language appropriate? Masculine and feminine pronouns like he or she, words like fireman that contain man, and words that some people incorrectly assume apply to only one gender. For example, some people think nurse must refer to a woman. Have you varied the length and structure of your sentences? Do you tend to use the passive voice too often? Does your writing contain a lot of unnecessary phrases like there is, there are, due to the fact that? Do you repeat a strong word, for example, a vivid main verb, unnecessarily? For tips, see our handouts on style and gender-inclusive language. Citations. Have you appropriately cited quotes, paraphrases, and ideas you got from sources? Are your citations in the correct format? As you edit at all of these levels, you will usually make significant revisions to your paper's content and wording. Keep an eye out for patterns of error. Knowing what kinds of problems you tend to have will be helpful, especially if you are editing a large document like a thesis or dissertation. Once you have identified a pattern, you can develop techniques for spotting and correcting that pattern's future instances. For example, suppose you notice that you often discuss several distinct topics in each paragraph. In that case, you can go through your paper and underline the keywords in each section. Then break the paragraphs up so that each one focuses on just one main idea. Why proofread? It's the content that matters, right? Content is important. But like it or not, the way a paper looks affects the way others judge it. when you've worked hard to develop and present your ideas. You don't want careless errors distracting your reader from what you have to say. It's worth paying attention to the details that help you to make a good impression. Most people devote only a few minutes to proofreading, hoping to catch any glaring errors that jump out from the page. But a quick and cursory reading, especially after you've been working long and hard on a paper, usually misses a lot. It's better to work with a definite plan that helps you to search systematically for specific kinds of errors. Sure, this takes a little extra time, but it pays off in the end. If you know that you have an effective way to catch errors when the paper is almost finished, you can worry less about editing while writing your first drafts. This makes the entire writing process more efficient. Try to keep the editing and proofreading processes separate. When you edit an early draft, you don't want to be bothered with thinking about punctuation, grammar, and spelling. If you are worrying about the spelling of a word or the placement of a comma, you are not focusing on the more critical task of developing and connecting ideas. The proofreading process. You probably already use some of the strategies discussed below. Experiment with different tactics until you find a system that works well for you. The important thing is to make the process systematic and focused on catching as many errors as possible in the least amount of time. Don't rely entirely on spelling checkers. These can be useful tools, but they are far from foolproof. Spell checkers have a limited dictionary, so some words that show up as misspelled may just not be in their memory. Also, spell checkers will not catch misspellings that form another valid word. For example, if you type your instead of your, to instead of to, or there instead of there, the spell checker won't catch the error. Grammar checkers can be even more problematic. These programs work with a limited number of rules, so they can't identify every error and often make mistakes. They also fail to give thorough explanations to help you understand why a sentence should be revised. You may want to use a grammar checker to help you identify potential run-on penalties or too frequent use of the passive voice. But you need to be able to evaluate the feedback it provides. Proofread for only one kind of error at a time. If you try to identify and revise too many things at once, you risk losing focus, and your proofreading will be less effective. It's easier to catch grammar errors if you aren't checking punctuation and spelling simultaneously. Some of the techniques that work well for spotting one kind of mistake won't see others. Read slow and read every word. Try reading aloud, which forces you to say each word and lets you hear how the words sound together. When you read silently or too quickly, you may skip over errors or make unconscious corrections. Separate the text into individual sentences. This is another technique to help you to read every sentence carefully. Simply press the return key after every period so that every line begins a new sentence. Then read each sentence separately, looking for grammar, punctuation, or spelling errors. If you're working with a printed copy, try using an opaque object like a ruler or a piece of paper to isolate the line you're working on. Circle every punctuation mark. This forces you to look at each one. As you circle, ask yourself if the punctuation is correct. Read the paper backward. This technique helps check to spell. Start with the last word on the previous page and work your way back to the beginning, reading each story separately. Because content, punctuation, and grammar won't make any sense, your focus will be entirely on the spelling of each word. You can also read backwards sentence by sentence to check grammar. This will help you avoid becoming distracted by content issues. Proofreading is a learning process. You're not just looking for errors that you recognize. You're also learning to identify and correct new errors. This is where handbooks and dictionaries come in. Keep the ones you find helpful close at hand as you proofread. Ignorance may be bliss, but it won't make you a better proofreader. You'll often find things that don't seem quite right to you. But you may not be entirely sure what's wrong either. A word looks like it might be misspelled, but the spell checker didn't catch it. You think you need a comma between two words, but you're not sure why. Should you use that instead of which? If you're not sure about something, look it up. The proofreading process becomes more efficient as you develop and practice a systematic strategy. You'll learn to identify the specific areas of your writing that need careful attention. Knowing that you have a sound method for finding errors will help you develop your ideas while drafting the paper. Think you've got it? Then give it a try, if you haven't already. This handout contains 7 errors our proofreader should have caught. 3 spelling errors, 2 punctuation errors, and 2 grammatical errors. Try to find them, and then check a version of this page with the errors marked in red to see if you're a proofreading star. Do I need to go through every stage? It depends on the type and length of the text. You don't need to follow the division of tasks shown above precisely strictly. But a good writing piece will nearly always go through a similar revising, editing, and proofreading process. In the traditional publishing process, the stages are divided, with different professionals responsible for each revision. A separate proofread of the final print version is necessary, especially because new typographical errors can be introduced during production. However, in texts that don't need to be formatted for mass printing, there is often more overlap between the steps. Some editorial services combine copy editing and proofreading into a single stage, sometimes called proof editing, where grammar, syntax, and style are addressed simultaneously as minor spelling and punctuation errors. What is your plagiarism score? Compare your paper with over 60 billion web pages and 30 million publications. Best plagiarism checker. Plagiarism report and percentage. Largest plagiarism database. Choosing a proofreading service. Suppose you lack confidence in your written English or just want to ensure you haven't missed anything in an important document. In that case, you might want to consider using a professional proofreading service. There are 2 main options. You can hire a freelance proofreader, or you can send your document to a proofreading and editing company. There are various things to consider when choosing a service. Do you only need proofreading or also editing? It's essential to have a clear idea of how much work your text requires. People often think they only need proofreading when, in reality, the reader would benefit from some level of editing. If you send a proofreader a document full of grammar mistakes, confusing sentences, and difficult to follow paragraphs, they might decline the job or recommend a different service. Many freelancers and companies offer both editing and proofreading, either separately, with separate pricing, or combined into one service. Make sure you understand precisely what kind of changes are included. Will the editor only correct minor errors? Or will they also comment on awkward phrasings and structural issues? Should the proofreader be specialized in your type of document? Many different types of documents require proofreading. From literary novels to technical reports, from PhD dissertations to promotional flyers. The best choice of service is usually one that's specialized in your type of document. While proofreaders and copy editors generally don't need expert knowledge of the text's content, the process will be smoother if your proofreader is familiar with the rules and conventions of the genre you're working on. How much does proofreading cost? The cost of proofreading varies widely. The price depends partly on the proofreader's location and level of experience, the type and length of text, and the turnaround time. Rates are usually calculated per word or per hour. If the service also focuses on formatting, it may be priced per page. Proofreading rates by word count. Proofreading and editing companies tend to have a set per word rate with different prices based on the turnaround time. On average, you can expect to pay $0.01, $0.05 per word, or around $2.4 per page. But services that include editing, as well as proofreading, will cost more. You can usually check in advance exactly how much it will cost you. Proofreading hourly rates. Many freelancers charge an hourly rate, which means the price will vary based on the document's quality and complexity. Hourly rates can be anywhere between $20 and $50 per hour. Be sure to discuss the pricing and get a quote in advance. You might not realize just how long it will take to proofread your text thoroughly. How long does proofreading take? You should try to leave plenty of time for editing and proofreading. But if you have a hard deadline, it's crucial to find a service that can deliver on time. Most companies offer various deadline choices, but it's best to plan a minimum of 24 hours for proofreading. The price will generally be lower if you can wait longer to have your document returned. It might not be possible for very long documents to complete the job in 24 hours, especially if you also need editing services. For combined proofreading and copy editing, you can expect an experienced editor to complete around 10,000 15,000 words in a single day. How can you check the quality and reliability of the service? Like everything on the internet, the quality of proofreading services varies widely. Do your research before you choose one. There are a few things you can check. Online reviews. Are they rated on independent review sites, e.g., Trustpilot, or freelancer platforms, e.g., Upwork? Qualifications. Do they have professional training and experience? If you're using a company, how do they select and train proofreaders? Customer service. Are they easily contactable and responsive to inquiries? Complaints policy. What happens if you're not happy with the job? Can you get a refund or a second edit? Choosing a proofreading service. Type: automated proofreaders. Advantages: free or relatively cheap. Instant proofreading. Disadvantages: unreliable for catching all mistakes. Risk of introducing new errors if not used carefully. Type: freelance proofreaders. Advantages: you can choose exactly who you work with. You can discuss and negotiate the job directly. Disadvantages: no quality control. Often longer turnaround times. The price and deadline may not be fixed in advance. Type: proofreading companies. Advantages: Upfront pricing, usually by word count. Fast turnaround and guaranteed deadlines. Standardized training and quality control. Disadvantages. Services are usually fixed and non-negotiable. Often no direct contact with the proofreader. 17 Proofreading techniques. The following list presents the strategies we recommend for better proofreading. These methods strengthen your proofreading process and knowledge. Step away, then focus. Whenever possible, step away from the document before proofreading. This is crucial when you are the document's author. You are too close to the content, making it difficult to have a clear, objective eye on the text. We recommend taking a 24-hour break from the content before proofreading for maximum effectiveness. 1. Print a hard copy proof of your document. Many editors find it easier to proofread with a physical document. Printing the paper makes it easier to read and allows you to proofread in more places. 1. Read aloud. Good proofreading is done slowly. Simply reading it typically allows your brain to fill in gaps and fix errors in your mind and skip them on the page. Reading aloud ensures that each word and punctuation mark is verified. It also highlights awkward sentences because they will sound more awkward out loud than on the page. Conveniently, there are online programs that will help with this task. Use your computer's text-to-voice function to have your document read to you. Having your computer read to you will help catch typos that you may skip over as you know the sentence's original intent. 1. Align with company style standards. Most companies have style standards for external documents. Ensure you have these guidelines close at hand while proofreading. These guidelines may range from font choice to preferred spellings to margin size and more. These details ensure consistency across an organization. 1. Remove excess words. Business writing is concise and direct. Excess words, like adjectives or adverbs, can detract from the message. Be careful not to overstep into editing and review the text for superfluous words that do not add value to the reader. Also, accidental excess or repeat words are erroneous and can be missed before proofing. 1. Explain or remove jargon. Specialized terminology or acronyms should be used sparingly, if at all, in business writing. When used appropriately for the reader, they still must be explained. Generally, the first mention of an acronym is spelled out entirely with the acronym followed in brackets. An unfamiliar technical term should be explained in the text before being referenced. Terms that are difficult for the reader should be removed and replaced with more accessible wording. 1. Check sentence structure. A proper sentence must have a subject, a verb, and express a complete thought. Simple, right? Yet, sentence fragments and run-on sentences can sneak into an otherwise excellent text. Review each sentence for proper structure and punctuation. 1. Review flow and sequencing. 1 pass of the document must be a high-level review. This overview checks the organization of the paper to ensure it has proper flow and sequencing. Check for formatting consistency, order, and numbering of images, tables, appendices, and general presentations. 1. Use software. Technology is your friend when it comes to proofreading. Microsoft's Spelling and Grammar Tool and Grammarly's Online Editor are 2 handy tools to catch spelling, grammatical errors, and some syntax errors that your spell check may miss. Use these tools as a first scan. They will catch detectable errors. However, word choice and homonyms are often only found by the human eye. You can check out our list of the top tools for tone, editing, and grammar, among others business writing needs, on our blog. 1. Hire an editor or ask colleagues/friends. If you're way too close to your document, proofing it yourself may not be a good idea. In this case, seek a genuinely objective opinion and review. Hiring an editor to complete the proofreading phase can be a valuable investment. Alternatively, asking a friend or colleague to proof your text can provide a fresh perspective. 1. Take a course. Proofreading is a skill that is learned, honed, and improved. Like many other writing aptitudes, proofing can be developed through education. Taking a course on proofing will help you master the process. We offer a proofreading course with grammar review that common proofreading mistakes. These tactics will help you catch the trickiest business communication errors. 1. Check homonyms. When a word sounds right, the quick reader can mistake it for being correct. Homonyms are a painful but essential item to check. Including accepting where accept is intended can be embarrassing or even disastrous in business communication. Ensure the word choice is the correct one. 1. Check apostrophes. Apostrophes are often placed incorrectly. Apostrophes are rarely used for plurals, but somehow they often appear as such. While mixing up companies with companies may not be disastrous, it is confusing and unprofessional. 1. Fact check. Employees, colleagues, and clients rely on business communications for information and decisions. Therefore, they need to be accurate. Whether it is the client name spelling, the sales division location, or the policy sheet, each detail must be correct. Fact-checking these details will ensure the document is valuable and useful. 1. Verify numbers, times, and dates. Numerical information is often the most critical and the easiest to mistype. Each number must be verified. A misplaced decimal or zero in a budget line can be a grievous error. Times should be checked that they are correct, including the time zone. Dates must be accurate to the day of the month and the week. Triple checking the numbers is not an over-the-top habit. 1. Verify names. Writing a staff's, colleagues, or client's name wholly or incorrectly wrong is simply disrespectful. It can lead to confusion, but more importantly, it shows insufficient attention to detail to the most important people, the reader or subject of the business communication. 1. Test hyperlinks and phone numbers. Website and phone numbers are convenient. However, they become very frustrated or ignored if they are incorrect. In the proofreading process, click on each hyperlink, type in each web address, and dial each phone number included in the document to ensure they will correctly direct the reader. Final thoughts. These 17 strategies will improve your proofreading skills. Carve out the time to review and implement each of these strategies correctly, and your business communication will be accurate, valuable, and professional. Proofreading tips and tricks. Basic proofreading skills are essential for anyone who writes. For everyday texts, such as business reports, blogs, or college papers, there are some techniques you can use to proofread efficiently and effectively before sharing your work. Tips for effective proofreading. Proofread backward. Begin at the end and work back through the paper paragraph by paragraph or even line by line. This will force you to look at the surface elements rather than the meaning of the paper. Place a ruler under each line as you read it. This will give your eyes a manageable amount of text to read. Know your own typical mistakes. Before you proofread, look over papers you have written in the past. Make a list of the errors you make repeatedly. Proofread for one type of error at a time. If commas are your most frequent problem, go through the paper checking just that one problem. Then proofread again for the following most frequent problem. Try to take a break between writing and proofreading. Set the paper aside for the night or even for 20 minutes. Proofread at the time of day when you are most alert to spotting errors. Proofread once aloud. This will slow you down, and you will hear the difference between what you meant to write and what you wrote. Try to give yourself a break between completing your final version of the paper and the time you sit down to edit. Approaching your writing with a clear head and having at least an hour to work on editing will ensure you can do a thorough, thoughtful job. The results will be worthwhile. Ask someone else to read over your paper and help you find sentences that aren't clear, places where you're wordy, and any errors. Try reading backward, a sentence at a time. This will help you focus on the penalties rather than getting caught up in your paper's content. Know your patterns. Your instructor can probably help you identify the errors you've made most often in your previous papers. And then you can focus your attention on finding and fixing them. Read through your paper several times. Once looking just at spelling, another time looking only at punctuation, and so on. Again, this can help you focus so you'll do a better job. Use the spell checker on your computer, but use it carefully, and also do your own spell checking. Computer spell checkers often make errors. They might suggest a word that isn't what you want at all. And they don't know the difference between there, they are, and there, for example. Edit your writing first. Before you get to the final stage of proofreading, make sure you've thoroughly revised and edited your work. There's no point spending time fixing minor errors if you might later remove whole sections or rewrite paragraphs. Only proofread once you've got a completed final draft that you're happy with. Take a break from the text. When you've been reading and rereading the exact words for hours or days, it becomes much harder to notice mistakes. Before proofreading, set your work aside for a while so that you can look at it with fresh eyes. Ideally, you should wait at least a day or two before final proofreading. But if you're on a tight deadline, even a half-hour break can help. Proofread a printout. Seeing your words on a printed page is another helpful strategy for noticing things that might have escaped your attention on the screen. If the final version will be printed. This is also an excellent chance to check your formatting is correct and consistent on the page. Use digital shortcuts. While reading from print can help you spot errors, word processing software can help you fix them efficiently. Most obviously, run a spell check, but don't rely on the computer to catch every mistake. Suppose you notice that you've repeatedly misspelled a particular word, inconsistently capitalized a term, or switched between UK and US English. In that case, you can use the Find and Replace function to fix the same mistake throughout the document. Be careful, though, and don't use Replace All. Click through and check every replacement to avoid accidentally adding more errors. Learn from your mistakes. Pay attention to the errors that keep recurring in the text. This can help you avoid them in the future. Knowing what to look out for is the most challenging part of proofreading. You'll probably notice apparent typos, but subtle mistakes in grammar and punctuation can be harder to recognize. The table below shows some of the most common errors to the lookout. What to watch out for when proofreading. Spelling and word choice confusions. Confusions between homophones, e.g. there/there/there. Misuse of definite and indefinite articles, the/a/n. Misuse of prepositions. Misplaced punctuation. Missing or misused commas. Confusion between hyphens, m-dashes, and n-dashes. Incorrect use of apostrophes. Stylistic inconsistency. Switching between UK and US conventions. Inconsistent capitalization of terms or titles. Inconsistent treatment of numbers. Formatting issues. Incorrect formatting of quotations and citations. Inconsistent paragraph indentation and spacing. Missing or misplaced page numbers, headers, and footers. Get some distance from the text. It's hard to edit or proofread a paper that you've just finished writing. It's still too familiar. And you tend to skip over many errors. Put the form aside for a few hours, days, or weeks. Go for a run. Take a trip to the beach. Clear your head of what you've written so you can take a fresh look at the paper and see what is really on the page. Better yet, give the form to a friend. You can't get much more distance than that. Someone who is reading the paper for the first time comes to it with completely fresh eyes. Decide which medium you let proofread most carefully. Some people like to work right at the computer, while others like to sit back with a printed copy to mark up as they read. Try changing the look of your document. Altering the size, spacing, color, or style of the text may trick your brain into thinking it sees an unfamiliar form, and that can help you get a different perspective on what you've written. Find a quiet place to work. Don't try to do your proofreading in front of the TV or while you're chugging away on the treadmill. Find a place where you can concentrate and avoid distractions. If possible, do your editing and proofreading in several short blocks of time. Your concentration may start to wane if you try to proofread the entire text at one time. If you're short on time, you may wish to prioritize. Make sure that you complete the most important editing and proofreading tasks. Conclusion. Though a proofread is less extensive than an edit, it is crucial to prepare a piece of writing to be read by other people, as errors can cause confusion or be seen as unprofessional. Thank you for all of you watching my video. If you like the video, then you like the video and post a comment.